Now, this is part B of the question that we started in the last video. This is very much like the sort of thing that comes up again and again and again in past papers. So, if you want to look at the last video to understand what's happening, but we're dealing with standard deviation and the mean. So, we have we found the mean and the standard deviation of the heights of S2 pupils in Glasgow. We now have S2 pupils in Aberdeen, and we have a sample, and we found that the mean height was 159 centimetres and the standard deviation was 4.3 centimetres. And we have to make two valid comparisons comparing the heights of the pupils in Glasgow and in Aberdeen. Pause the video if you want to have a go at it, but something I will say is this is a hard one to get right. There's far more many ways to word this wrong than there is right. In the marking schemes of these types of questions, there are a lot of common sentences that pupils write, and you want two sentences for this. They commonly write something that looks as if it's correct, but it isn't. I'll explain this in a second. So let's first of all concern ourselves with the mean. Now, for Glasgow, we have 157, and for Aberdeen, we have 159 centimetres. So the mean for Aberdeen is higher than is for Glasgow. So what you want to say is something along the lines of, on average, because the mean is an average. So the mean and the median are both types of averages, but the mean is you add up all of the numbers and divide by the number of numbers. The median is you put the numbers in ascending order, and it's the number in the middle of the list, or the number that if you split the list in two falls within the centre. So on average, the heights of S2 pupils, pay close attention to the wording of this one, S2 pupils in Aberdeen is greater than that in Glasgow. We'll say greater than that of S2 pupils in Glasgow. Just a straightforward sentence. This is the first thing you would write. You don't have to write anything to do with the 157, 159. Just something fairly simple like this would be the answer. A few things that many pupils do, and they get this one wrong. First of all, many pupils would forget to put the on average bit, and they would say the heights of pupils in Aberdeen is greater than Glasgow. The issue is, well, there's two issues. Number one, you need to let the marker know that you know that the mean is an average. And by writing on average, you let them know that you know that. Also, is that going to be true for all pupils in Aberdeen and all in Glasgow? So just saying the heights of Aberdonian pupils is greater than that of Glaswegians is not always going to be true. Like, I went to school in Glasgow and there was boys in S2, so age 13, 14, who would have been above 6 foot tall. So you can't just put a blanket statement without putting on average. Other issues would be things like people writing on average S2 pupils are in Aberdeen are greater than S2 pupils in Glasgow. Like, what's greater? If you say on average S2 pupils are greater, or S2 pupils in Aberdeen are greater than S2 pupils in Glasgow, that could be, is that their exam scores, is that their football ability? It might seem obvious, but you have to actually word it correctly and answer the question. So things like saying on average S2 pupils in Aberdeen are better than S2 pupils in Glasgow. First of all, what do you mean by better? Second of all, just because somebody's taller doesn't make somebody better. I know this is going off topic a bit, but it's really important to actually use the correct statistical terminology. So let's then look at the standard deviation. Do I have enough space? No, so I'll make a new page. I am emphasising the sort of things that you do not want to write because so many pupils get this wrong. The other thing I forgot to say is, in the last one, do not write on average pupils in S2. No, on average pupils in S2 are taller. Again, you've not said which one is taller than the other. So you do have to be really clear. Standard deviation is not an average, it's a measure of the spread of data. So the smaller the standard deviation, the simple way to put it is, in layman's terms, the smaller the standard deviation, the less varied or the more consistent the data is, or the numbers are. And the higher the standard deviation, the more spread out they are. That's the simple explanation that you need to know for National 5. If you get to university, it gets a bit more complicated, but that's what you need to know. So we have put G for Glasgow, and the standard deviation we worked out is 5.22. Watch the last video if you're scratching your head at that one, and Aberdeen in the question is 4.3. So the standard deviation for Aberdeen is less than that of Glasgow. If you wrote the standard deviation of the heights of S2 pupils is lower than that in Aberdeen, is lower than the standard deviation of the heights of S2 pupils in Glasgow, you're correct, but you're stating the obvious. What the marker is looking for is, do you understand what that means essentially? And what that means is that the heights, I will write this down, the heights of S2 pupils in Aberdeen are more consistent. Because the standard deviation is less, the numbers or the heights are more consistent than S2 pupils in Glasgow. I've just changed the app for this, so it's a bit messy because I'm having to get used to it, but you should be able to make this out, and I am verbally dictating all of this. It's still totally readable, I hope. So the heights of S2 pupils in Aberdeen are more consistent than for S2 pupils in Glasgow. You don't have to write the phrase standard deviation, but you don't just want to say the mean of something is more than something else, or the standard deviation is more, because you want to explain what that actually means. Now, instead of writing more consistent, we could also write less varied. Or less spread out. So you can word this in a few different ways. You could say more consistent, less varied, less spread out. Some examples of what you don't want to write is the S2 pupils in Aberdeen are more consistent than the pupils in Glasgow. Because again, what does that mean? You've not said in that sentence that I said about anything about height. If you say the S2 pupils are more consistent in Aberdeen than in Glasgow, that's ambiguous and makes no sense. Saying something like the pupils' heights were less varied, well, was it the Glaswegian or the Aberdonian pupils' heights are less varied? You have to actually say that the Aberdonians' heights are more consistent or less spread out. Saying something like the standard deviation is more consistent for the S2 pupils in Aberdeen. Saying that the standard deviation of the heights of the S2 pupils in Aberdeen again is wrong, because the standard deviation is just a number that you found. It can't, that the standard deviation on its own can't be consistent or not. And if you said anything like the range, any mention of the range, because the standard deviation is not the same thing as the range. The range is the greatest value in a set minus the lowest value. The standard deviation is, in simple terms, how far the numbers are from the mean. So you could have a set that is that has one number that's a lot bigger than the rest of the numbers, and that would skew the range a lot. But it might not affect the standard deviation that much. So I know this was a long video, but it's one of these ones that so many pupils, sorry, they mess up, and they always write something, or they usually always write something that, if you took a look at it, it looks good, but it's not statistically correct. So I hope you found this video useful, and leave a comment if you need any help, but best of luck with the studying. Thanks for watching.